Hello, dear friends. I'm not a master, but a humble sorcerer's apprentice, and I touch the subject as a novice, recognizing that I have many gaps on the subject, and that I do not have all the answers. Opinion piece. The magic of dew. It is a symbol of purity and innocence. It would be impregnated with the universal spirit. It is collected in the months of March, April, and May. This water vapor comes from the heat of the earth. It is called tears of the goddess or pearls of the dawn. This celestial water is highly appreciated by alchemy. It is also used to collect fresh water in dry places. There is an international organization for the use of dew. There was an International Congress of Dew Harvesting. Canary Island farmers collect moisture in conical holes. More than 1,250 Afghans evacuated from Kabul have been cared for by Spain. Western nations rushed to complete evacuation from Afghanistan. Let's start. I have been curious about this subject ever since I had Spanish alchemist Luis Silva talk about dew, but I can't get my head around it because most of the videos and texts are confusing and contradictory. I have so many doubts that I didn't dare to write this article, but I also have some certainties that I am going to transmit. Some speak of distilling the freshly collected dew on a full spring moon. Others speak of leaving it to ferment in a wooden barrel like wine for 40 days and 40 nights, and then distilling it if they can bear the bad smell of rot. Others speak of redistilling the oily mud that remains. Others ferment it in jars buried in the ground to maintain a constant temperature. Others speak of the distillate generating a tartar wine, etc. That is to say, a permanent confusion. Philosophical salt. Then they say that the final result is a philosophical salt of extraordinary properties, which would be the basis of the philosopher's stone, but they speak of 3 nitrogenous salts, one white, one transparent, and one red. For more confusion, but no one gives you a definitive recipe, nor how to get which of the salts of which one is the best. Others say that the best one is the one that is impregnated with a blue glow because it has collected the astral light. But no one explains clearly how the salts are extracted from the dew. Anyway, the alchemical tradition is very confusing because each master has his own book and never gives you all the information or gives you false clues to mislead you, or gives you the correct information in the form of indecipherable symbols. In such a case, it would be necessary to have a personal teacher to reveal the secret, or at least give you some clues to decipher the keys, or to receive a divine inspiration that doesn't always come. For any spiritual path to work, including alchemy, you have to be in love with it and dedicate many hours of study, work, patience, silence, humility, and dedication, as in all things in life. But no spiritual path works if you do not put heart into it, and do not follow an ethical conduct of honesty. In other words, spirituality is made for good people and not for devils. Many years ago, I tried to decipher Fulcanellis The Mystery of the Cathedrals, but I gave up because I didn't understand anything, and I believe that my case is not the only one. But nowadays we are at the end of time, and many secrets that were hidden before are being revealed, which has reawakened my curiosity about the subject. I've managed to learn a few things, but it's more questions than answers. Here is what I have learned. Definition. Dew is a vapor that condenses in the atmosphere in the cool of the night into very small droplets, which then appear on the surface of the earth or on plants. It is water in the form of droplets that appears on thin, exposed objects at night due to condensation. As the exposed surface cools by radiating its heat, atmospheric moisture condenses at a faster rate that it can evaporate, resulting in the formation of water droplets. Because dew is related to the temperature of surfaces, in late summer it forms more readily on surfaces that are not warmed by heat conducted from deep ground, such as grass, leaves, railings, car roofs, and bridges. It is poetically called the tears of the goddess, or the pearls of the dawn, but it is known that this water vapor comes from the heat of the earth, and therefore contains minerals, and that it is also charged with the energy of the sun reflected in the full moon, but cannot be given the direct sun because it evaporates or it would lose its properties. The dew, or celestial water, is the condensation of the night atmosphere under the influence of the moon, and according to the alchemical tradition, it is the privileged vehicle of the universal spirit that nourishes and revitalizes all plants and even the human being. The old alchemists regarded celestial water with great appreciation. In the countries of the Central Europe, they recommended that the dew be collected during the full moons of spring, in the months of March, April, and May, because in those months it has a very special virtue, as it is impregnated with the universal spirit. Collection. The collection and distillation of the dew is a real Herculean task that requires a lot of patience and perseverance. There are many ways to collect the night dew. In the silent book, we see images of canvases stretched between four stakes, and then a man and a woman wringing out and rolled up canvas so that it drains the water over a basin. Another method is to stroke the plants with cotton balls or the grass with towels and then wring them out. A wooden plank is also used to collect moisture, but the spray cannot touch the metal because it will lose power. Get up 2 hours before sunrise, but before going to the site, check the dew by looking at the roofs of cars parked on the street, in an open spot away from the building. Look to see if the cars are covered with condensation. If so, this is a good sign. If there is no condensation on the cars, you do not need to leave your house because there is no dew. The dew collected is the slightly yellowish color of tea and has no odor, but does have mineral salts and organic substances. Cooking recipe. The best advice I have found is to distill the unfermented dew in the duck in a still, such as is used for distilling brandy from wine or vinegar over a moderate fire, not exceeding 60 degrees Celsius, even if it takes a long time, and keep the dregs on wet, oily mud remaining at the bottom, which should then be redistilled to dryness. The distilled dew should be kept in glass bottles away from light. Remove the layer and calcine it in an earthenware on stainless steel pot over a very strong fire. The famous salt is extracted by leaching or washing the calcinated substance with the distilled dew as a solvent to separate the soluble parts from the insoluble ones, but I have no further details. The dew salt, still crude from the alchemical point of view, contains a subtle nitre which, after being duly prepared, as the art of alchemy demands, is used in the canonical dry way. Properly prepared means exactly that I have no idea how it is done, but I leave it there in case someone smarter than me discovers the details of this cooking recipe. The dry way of alchemy is the one that uses fire, and the wet way is the one made at room temperature. But the qualifier of canonical, I don't know what you are referring to, unless it is prepared by a priest. If someone is looking for steel to distill dew, on Amazon there are then of all prices, but no one sells you the recipe to cook the dew. Artificial harvesting. Several human-made devices, such as ancient large stone mounds in the Ukraine, medieval ones in southern England, or volcanic stone covers in the fields of Lanzarote, have been thought to be dew-trapping devices, but they could be shown to work on other principles. In the Canary Islands, the vines are pre-planted in the center of a conical hole in the volcanic ash, and the necessary humidity to grow is attributed to the dew. Apparently, there were also atmospheric water condensers in ancient times. These are known and unknown at the same time, known through multiple legends, but unknown because currently we have few documents that can confirm the truth of these facts. Currently, the International Organization for Dew Utilization is working on effective sheet-based condensers for regions where rain or fog cannot meet year-round water needs. The Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, has fabricated large-scale dew harvesting systems in the coastal and semi-arid region of Kutch. These condensers can collect more than 200 liters of dew water at night for approximately 90 nights during the dew season, from October to May. The Institute's research laboratory has demonstrated that dew can serve as a supplemental water source in arid coastal areas. A plan for large-scale dew harvesting has been proposed. The plan calls for circulating cold seawater in collectors near the seashore. This condenses the dew and fog to provide clean drinking water. OPUR is the International Organization for the Utilization of Dew, and an International Congress on Fog Harvesting and Dew is also held. Source of water. The Association for the Use of Dew aims to promote and support scientific, technical, aesthetic, and literary actions related to the formation and recovery of atmospheric dew as an alternative water supply. The association works in the company of different scientific and aesthetic centers of high prestige. The association has its correspondents abroad who are part of various international research organizations. Dew is a source of pure water, often modest, but it can prove to be an essential supply in areas where fresh water is scarce, such as deserts. Many hot countries suffer from lack of water, despite having a high level of water in their atmosphere. Dew is like our Earth, so strong and yet so fragile. It is up to us to ensure that the miracle of the morning doesn't turn into a caustic, foul-smelling liquid, so that the dew remains a symbol of purity and innocence. Hold the light. The forces of light have begun to clear the innermost layer of the matrix of dark etheric and astral force, with tens of billions of reptilian entities still present. This practically means that the battle for the planetary surface on the non-physical planes is now reaching its peak. The dark attacks in the last week have collapsed about 40% of the light grid over the surface of the planet, and fortunately the grid is slowly recovering in the last days, as reported by the 2012 portal of the Intelligence Center for the Victory of Light. The forces of light have communicated that it is of utmost importance to go within, connect with the light and hold the light, no matter what happens in the outer world during the coming weeks and months. If enough people hold the light, this will ensure the most positive outcome possible in the current challenging situation. The forces of light have also communicated that it is very good for people to minimize their exposure to conventional and alternative media and instead spend more time in nature, gather in small inspirational groups, listen to music, or do whatever it takes to keep the frequency high. If you feel so guided, you can also meditate and cleanse the energy of a planetary energy grid with the violet flame. The first of the two exact squares of Eris-Pluto will take place on August 28th. August 30th is set as the activation date for certain groups. It is impossible to predict how all this will manifest, but between now and the end of October, a Kuiper belt object called Alchemy is in exact conjunction with Rigel, the star of the dark forces of Orion. This is the time of the great purification of the Rigelian forces that invaded planet Earth in 1996. And after this purification is finished in mid to late October, it will be much easier to manifest the dreams of the Aquarian age on the surface of this planet. The toplet bombs within the implants have not yet been removed and remain the primary factor impeding the event. One commentator has explained the situation very clearly. The next 2 months are a pivotal time in human history, and we need to hold the light. Every person counts. Digital currency. Sorry, by Logan B. In quotes. Some time ago, I posted that the Company of Heaven asked for announcements to initiate the golden age that was coming soon. As humans, we define soon as anywhere from a few minutes to a few days. If we are not informed of delays that need to be addressed first, soon is not being weeks or months, but years. The redemption event may not happen the way most expect. Rumors even suggest that the constant predictions and delays are designed to keep everyone in the game and more involved in creating an army of humanitarian beings. Sources claim that the global implementation of digital currency is the next step towards the transition to the quantum financial system. Countries are already stockpiling foreign currencies in preparation for this transition, as assets will be required to back the digital currency. China has accumulated 1 billion foreign reserves. All countries will soon begin to embrace the idea of digital currency by abandoning the fiat system and competing with cryptocurrency. Among the first countries to implement digital currency will be the US and China. Once both countries implement digital currency, the rest of the world will follow. Most important in this process are countries such as Iraq, Zimbabwe, and Vietnam. Once these countries implement their own digital currency, we will see a revalued rate based on the assets of these countries. Sources believe this is when the currency swap event begins. Some governments would be forcing farmers to destroy their crops and then paying them more than they would have earned by selling the crops. This would be causing a food shortage. There could also be a shortage of cotton that goes into clothing, diapers, and many other products. In some videos of the snowstorm in Texas, people were showing on TikTok and YouTube how the snow was not real snow but chemicals. September will become even more critical as more wake up. The awakening is unstoppable, and so are the big changes. There is no turning back. We are in times of great change. Afghanistan. Countdown to Kabul evacuations. Time is running out for thousands of Afghans in Kabul trying to get out of the country. The 31st is the deadline set by the US to leave Afghanistan for good, and the Pentagon confirmed the departure of hundreds of its soldiers from Kabul airport on Tuesday, coinciding with Biden's message to his allies. There will be no extension of any kind. Western nations rush to complete Afghanistan evacuation just days before deadline. Western nations rushed to evacuate people from Afghanistan on Wednesday, with less than a week to go before all foreign troops leave, acknowledging that many Afghans who helped them will be left behind to an uncertain fate under the Taliban. 1,500 Americans remain in Afghanistan and 4,500 have been evacuated. Up to 1,500 Americans remains in Afghanistan after some 4,500 have been evacuated, a senior official said Wednesday. US pledges to do all it can to allow evacuation from Kabul after August 31st. The US government will use all economic and diplomatic tools to ensure that all who wish to leave Afghanistan can do it so after the August 31st evacuation deadline, Secretary of State Antony Blinken said. Washington foresees the possibility of collaboration with the Taliban if it helps advance its interests. Secretary of State Antony Blinken reported that more than 1,000 Americans could still be in Afghanistan. He indicated that Washington has evacuated at least 4,500 US citizens and that another 500 are prepared for an upcoming departure from that country. As for the total number of evacuees, the Secretary of State said that more than 82,000 people have been removed since August 14. UK says deadline for evacuation from Afghanistan is up to last minute August 31st. British Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab said Wednesday that the deadline for evacuating people from Afghanistan was up to the last minute of this month. British military evacuate armored car on plane from Kabul accused of prioritizing vehicle over people. The UK Ministry of Defence has been heavily criticised on social media for wasting space on evacuation planes after Sky News aired a report Tuesday showing how a car was being flown out of the Afghan capital after the Taliban seized control of the country. Turkey begins evacuating its military from Kabul airport. Currently, they say it is a mission limited to helping with the security of the withdrawal. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says 200,000 Afghans should be resettled in the US. In quotes, I think we should move and the administration should move as quickly as possible and as broadly as possible to ensure that we are increasing refugee visas to the amount that it is necessary, the congresswoman told The Independent. In quotes, I would say the fund is 200,000, but I think it should be whatever is necessary, and that needs to be accelerated as quickly as possible, she said. World Bank suspends funding to Afghanistan. The World Bank has suspended funding for projects in Afghanistan because of the Taliban movement's rise to power in the Central Asian country, spokesman for the agency said. Two planes with about 100 evacuees from Afghanistan arrived in Moscow. IL-62 and IL-76 planes of the Russian Defense Ministry, with about 100 evacuees from Afghanistan, landed at the Galovsky airport in the Moscow region. The evacuees are Russians and of Afghan origin, mainly. Mexico welcomes fleeing Afghan journalists, including from New York Times. Mexico welcomed 124 media workers and their families from Afghanistan, including journalists from the New York Times, the government said Wednesday, as people flee after the takeover of the Taliban militant group. Mexican Navy helicopter carrying Veracruz government secretary crashes. A Mexican Navy helicopter carrying Veracruz government secretary Eric Cisneros crashed during a tour of areas affected by Hurricane Grace. Mexican economy grew by almost 20% year-on-year in the second quarter of 2021. The Mexican economy grew by 19.5% year-on-year in the period between April and June 2021 and by 1.5% compared to the previous quarter, representing the fourth consecutive quarterly advance. Violence in Mexico. Illicit gun violence in Mexico has increased exponentially in recent years. Who is responsible for gun violence? The manufacturers and distributors, or the buyers and users? Spain. A new flight lands in Torrejón with 292 Afghans evacuated by Spain. A total of 292 Afghans arrived this Wednesday afternoon at the Torrejón de Ardoz Air Base, Madrid, on a new evacuation flight, in addition to the 39 passengers who landed at the same aerodrome on an European External Action Service plane from Paris. More than 1,250 Afghans evacuated from Kabul have been attended to by Spain, Afghans and their families who have collaborated with the Spanish mission in Afghanistan continue to arrive in Spain. At the Torrejón de Ardoz base, more than 1,250 Afghans have already been assisted. In the government's list, priority is given to the evacuation of women and girls, especially if they are activists or journalists. Vox asks to bring to Spain a small community of Christian Afghans. The deputy of Vox, Ignacio Gil Lázaro, has asked the government to bring to Spain a small community that professes Christianity in Afghanistan, and thus save them from the Taliban. But he remarks that this group should be an exceptional case because his party still thinks that the other Afghan civilians should be welcomed by Muslim countries close to Afghanistan. A building collapses in Spain. Several people have been trapped after a residential building collapsed in Peñíscola, a coastal town in eastern Spain. The mayor of the locality assures that there are about 20 houses affected by the collapse. Chinese in Spanish bazaars return home. Chinese citizens are beginning to leave Spain. For the first time, the beginning of the century, the number of a community known in the country for its dedication to work and its businesses related to retail trade is decreasing. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.